This is one way. I know we already talked about videos, but if you're looking at doing screencasting of any kind, you can use Zoom to screencast. It'll show you your little face, so you have that presence there, as well as allow you to show a PowerPoint or a web link or something like that, whatever's on your desktop, and you're able to record that, and then you can actually leverage that to be a screencasting application along the lines of like the Screencastify or Jing or QuickTime or anything like that that you happen to have. So with the lesson that we're doing this week, we are working with concept mapping. A lot of people have already done concept mapping in some way, shape, or form. And so what I want you to really look at or kind of try to push yourself on is not actually doing the concept mapping or mind mapping or knowledge mapping or whatever it is that you want to call it. What you really want to be looking at and trying to kind of push yourself with this week is thinking about how to use it collaboratively. Now, the lesson that you do not have to collaborate on your map, although that would be really great, but depending on how people are working in their work style and all of those kind of things, I hate to really push you to work with somebody else, to work with someone else to make it collaborative. But while you're working with the lessons, think about how you could make your map collaborative between you and someone else, or teachers as a professional development, students within a course, any kind of training, the kind of things that you could be looking at with your whoever you happen to be working with in your own practice or whatever, to make it a collaborative experience. Because a lot of studies are showing that with the collaboration is where a lot of the learning gains come from. There have been some studies that looked at how students mind map together or concept map together when they were given terms and told them to put them into a hierarchical order and connect them and write the words on the links to show the relationships. And as the students kind of negotiate where each piece goes, that's when a lot of the learning is generated. So kind of just keep that in the back of your mind as you're creating your lesson. Your mind does not have to be collaborative, but think about how you could use it collaboratively. So with that, I'd like to kind of open up the floor for this. If you haven't been on one of these before, I'll ask the question, and we pretty much can either try to raise hands in that, but I tend to be really bad at noticing them, or we can just kind of open it up for people to talk a little bit. I would appreciate you letting everyone get a chance to speak. But other than that, as long as you are talking nicely to each other, that's about all the etiquette we need to worry about. The first kind of question we wanted to look at then tonight with the theme of collaboration along with the concept mapping is, how do you incorporate collaboration into your teaching or your work, or you're creating multimedia activities or having the students work with it? How do you, first of all, how do you define collaboration? Does anyone have a definition that they particularly like for collaboration?
I would say when I consider collaborate, it's just everybody working together doing a different part of the project. Or sorry, I should say they're not doing a different part, but they're all doing all parts of it. So not one person is just doing writing, not one person is just drawing pictures, but they're all kind of doing everything together.
Okay. Does anyone else have a different definition or something you wanted to add to that?
I feel like it's sort of like a community, and I oftentimes will tell my kids we're working as a team.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's kind of how I explain it. But I work with 4-year-olds, so it's hard to explain collaboration to 4-year-olds.
I think that it's probably harder to explain it to a bunch of type A personalities than it is to 4-year-olds. Does anybody else have any definition or any way that you use it in your work setting or your class?
How they're working together for a common goal.
Okay.
I would say mine's almost the same as Rob's. It's the students are working as a team to meet one common goal. They have the same goal in mind. You got to work together to get there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm really glad to hear your definitions of that, because a lot of times, as Audrey, I think, spoke first and kind of broke the ice, As she started saying, then corrected herself. A lot of times people will talk about collaboration, but what they really mean is divide and conquer. And the real definition of collaboration in educational settings is that they are working together to build their knowledge, which does mean, as you all said, working as a team, working together for one common goal, everybody doing every part of it. Everybody doesn't have to do every single part of it, but yes, if you're going to have collaboration, especially using computers and that, you really don't want to look at the divide and conquer. The divide and conquer gives each student an island of expertise, but if you don't bring it back together into one kind of common artifact or knowledge artifact that's used in the classroom, then a lot of times students end up with these little islands of knowledge that they really don't know how to put the pieces together on. And that's a lot of times termed as cooperative learning and not as collaborative learning. So that is the big difference that people kind of, or distinction people make with that. Back when you did your 590 class, and most of you have already done the 590 class, one of the things that they have you do in there is the web quest. And the web quest is supposed to be structured as a thing that everyone has roles and then they bring their pieces back together. And using a jigsaw strategy like that can be very valuable in the classroom where every student develops expertise. But you do want to make sure that as you're working on some kind of instruction that when you're bringing them back together, all the students are sharing their knowledge and all of them are working collaboratively then together to create that common knowledge artifact that can be used. Okay, so with that, do you have any special projects that you utilize in your classroom that uses some kind of multimedia or Web 2.0 tool or something like that that you've used that has allowed the students to be collaborative, or adults training, or whatever setting you happen to be in? I have good wait time. I can wait a while. So think about it. What kind of things have you done in your class? What kind of tools have you used that have allowed the students to do that? Okay, Rob's using his hand. All right.
I work in a little bit different environment than I would say the traditional teacher. I work in a virtual environment as a virtual ed teacher via K-12, but not a brick and mortar school at all. So I work primarily in Blackboard Collaborate. And via Blackboard Collaborate, I can create breakout rooms that students can join to work collaboratively.
Mm-hmm.
And breakout rooms could be anywhere from 2 to 100 students, whatever. I don't do that, obviously, 2 to 4, but it's a wide range. And when I have students go into those breakout rooms, before I have them go into the breakout room, I have them know the specific task they must do they'll be able to accomplish that sound goal. So it could be, for me, I teach, everyone gives me a weird look with this, I teach physical education online. That's what I do. So I always ask me, how do you do PE online? Yeah, it's kind of different, but I usually just have them initially watch a video on how to do a sport. They work collaboratively to answer 5 to 7 higher level questions. So get them thinking about the history, the rules, and the gameplay of specific sports.
Okay. Now that's interesting. Sometime I'm going to have to talk to you because I've had several physical education teachers.
You're fine.
In the district that I've worked at and a lot of districts that I've worked with that have really struggled with putting their physical education classes online. So they had some ideas and things in that. Sometime I'll run them by you and see how you're using it to work with that.
Sounds great.
Else in another area, does anyone else do a lot of collaborative work or any kind of collaborative work that you would like to share? Okay. I'm going to share then. My entire dissertation that I did was actually working with online tools for computer-supported collaborative learning. So we used a couple different tools for different tasks. The tasks that we were working with, that I had the students working with, actually tied to science education, and we were looking at the 3 pieces of argumentation, which are identifying information and communicating to each other, articulating their understandings of it, and then actually creating some persuasive piece of argument. And so I used Delicious, but I've also, in the meantime, used Diigo, which I like better, especially for classroom research. If any of you are doing research online with any type of student or learner, I should say learner, in any kind of setting, especially older, probably 4th grade and up, it works best with. As you have them reading it online, Diigo allows them to highlight. It allows them to screen capture pictures, annotate them, all these kind of things, and save it in one place. And they can create groups. And these groups can work together then to look through the resources and kind of use them then for the project. So we use that. That's collaborative if you set it up as a group. You can also share out links from it, which allows you to collaborate a little bit more by sharing resources between each other. And the students don't print 500 pages that they highlight 2 paragraphs on 3 of the 500 pages, and then you waste all that paper. The second tool is a wiki. Have any of you ever worked with a wiki? Okay, if you've worked with a wiki, then you've worked with a tool that is really, really great for supporting collaborative learning if done properly. Google Docs is also the very similar process or very similar pedagogy that underlies it if you're using it to collaborate on things. So either of these things allows students to create a document, create a website, create different artifacts and put them together in one place, share links, and work together. And you also have a history that you can track, which is sometimes very important for teachers to be able to see who does what and how you share the collaborative projects. And the last piece we did was a video, like a public service announcement, as their final persuasive piece. Now the problem with that was at the time there's not really any collaborative software that you can use to do video together without paying a lot for it. WeVideo does that, but you have to pay for the product and you have to have student accounts. If any of you know of a video product that allows you to collaborate, I know with YouTube you can edit. Google Hangouts, you can talk together. Can you actually do video in there and edit the video? Is what I was.
Oh, edit the video? I don't know if you can edit the video.
Yeah, you can do a talk like this, and you can talk. In YouTube, you can take pieces of video, put them together, and edit. And different people can edit, but I don't think you can do it at the same time. WeVideo is the only one that I know of right now that I've played with a little bit that you can actually use to do something like that. So that's the hardest piece of doing video work or anything like that with the students, to having them collaborate, because they pretty much have to share the same computer, and that creates some issues. But the other products are very easily accessed and very easy for people to make student accounts and to work with them. Wikispaces is very easy to create a comma separated, like a spreadsheet, and you can drop all the names in, and it allows them to log in with just a number as well. And they have a classroom as well. If your school does not do Google Hangouts, or I'm sorry, Google for Classrooms, Wikispaces you can run also as a classroom. And there's other places you can use for students to collaborate on web page type things. Does that kind of spike your memory or spark your memory that you think of anything else you've used in the classroom that might be interesting for everyone?
Well, I think if you sign a video in Google, they can take notes during that video, and it marks the time where they took that note. Yeah. And then you can share it. I think you can share it. I'm pretty sure, because it goes back to the teacher.
Yeah, there's a couple pieces of software that'll do that, that'll let you talk about a video or carry on a conversation about a video. Video Note. Video Notes allows you to have a video and have students annotate as they work through it collaboratively. And there's another piece of software that I'm using with my doc students. It's called, I think it's vnote.org, but I'll check on that. A friend of mine actually developed that software, and it's free for the basic version of it, and you can use up to a half-an-hour piece of video to share between people. It's pretty slick. I got to beta test it through, and what they are up to right now is really fantastic. But you can have students download that and work as well with the basic version for free, and it works on your iPad for free as well too. But both of those will work for that. There's a couple other pieces of software that will allow you to annotate a video but not create the video together. So there's a lot of Web 2.0 tools. Kathy Schrock, I've listed a couple places with her lists. You can look on there for collaborative things. And she has rubrics, and she has all kinds of different tools that you can use to push people to work together over the computer or face-to-face in a classroom using different apps or websites. Anyone else have anything to add to that? Okay, so my last question for you tonight is how do you develop a culture of collaboration within your classroom or work setting? Because sometimes people try to compete and create this competitive environment, which can have benefits. But if you want them to work collaboratively, what are some things that you can do that could foster that?
I would say just the more you have them practice and just get more familiar with collaborating. Obviously, especially with younger kids, there's going to be arguments. No, but she did that, and I wanted to do that. And so I think it's just all about practicing. No matter what it is, technology or just working on a poster board together. And just, I think, practicing and going over those expectations and what it looks like, that'll just help them get better at it.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add to her comment? Add to her what she's talking about.
I mean, teaching fifth grade, I have the sort of interesting time period of them at their age, being 10 and 11, where they still really want to be competitive with each other. But if I inform them that the goal is for them to work together, they can kind of get it a little more. And then coming back from spring break, having collaborative projects is a little easier for me because they're scared of middle school. And so, I rely on these people that you've been with for 6 years. You can trust them. And so coming back from spring break, our sort of sense of community increases so much because they're scared for the big wide world that comes in a few months. I end the year with a big collaborative project, and it's really nice to see where like the other grades are kind of sick of each other. My kids are like, oh, we'll work together, it'll be great, because they don't want to leave that little safety net that they have.
Does anyone else have experiences with building a collaborative community?
Within my community, we started at the beginning of the year, and we're starting the kids so that when they do go to school, they already understand what a community is and they understand building families. So when I address being a community, I always address it with my kids that we're a class family. And I talk about how can we take care of each other, and I oftentimes address them to each other. So if they're having a struggle with something, I oftentimes say, I noticed your friend is really doing a great job at that. I wonder if they could help you do that. Or I notice your friend is writing this word. Maybe they can help you write that word as well. So I try to do that to help build that community. And so now at this point in the year, they're so to the point where they don't need me to do that anymore. They're like, come on, let's go do this now. And so that's one of my huge moments just before they break apart to go to their different schools.
Made me think of Lilo and Stitch. Ohana means family, no one's left behind.
I had a TV production for 7th grade where they had to do something every Friday afternoon to push out into our TV. So the roles that they had were the producer, the reporters, the anchors, the camera worker. So when each of them had to take on that role and sit in that spot and be the person in charge, the going to each other as they were learning the roles and saying, hey, you were a producer once, can we talk about what we need? So as they got comfortable in understanding the roles, then they really were working collaboratively in this cooperative kind of working environment.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though it was my turn to be producer, I knew that such and such already did that role, so I would turn to them. So they kind of started turning to each other so that they weren't all alone. So the reporter knew that they could go to the anchor and help get editing, and so that the producer, they could go to the producer and get help. That the camera person could also be someone that they could go to and get that help, that collaborative. So understanding the roles and developing them, even though they knew that they were responsible and had to reflect upon their own experiences. So that was a lot of fun, though. We had a great time doing it.
That sounds like a fun project. How about experiences where collaboration broke down in your work environment or your classroom? My children and myself kind of hate collaborative projects because we're a little bit take over kind of people. And so big joke around our house is the fact that, whenever you have a collaborative project, that, well, I'm just going to do it anyway. So we have a big cartoon that has like, I'm going to ask my group partners to be my pallbearers so that they can carry me for once, something like that. My son has it on the wall down in his room. But I'm sure I can see people smiling. Many of you have had that experience as well, where the collaborative project ended up being your project and everybody else put their name on it. No? Some of you are saying no even. So one of the things that we worry about with collaboration is how do you make sure everybody does their piece? Making the group responsible for everything is one way to try to do that, but sometimes, with quizzing or with individual written assignments or using their artifact in another assignment so that they have to work together, those are some structures that I've seen people using and that research is showing that's supportive, that if you have them creating this project, this artifact that can be used in class, like a wiki page on a certain endangered species, and they know later that they will have to not use their page but use someone else's page to write a different report or do a presentation or something. A lot of times that can help build this community that all of you have been speaking about in the classroom or work environment, where they work together between the groups as well as within the group to meet all the requirements. Google Docs, Wikispaces, the video notes we were talking about earlier too, Diigo, all of these tools have checks built into them that you can see what people did. And that's very helpful for a classroom teacher. A nice feature of the Wiki Classroom, the Wikispaces classroom, they just built in something that you can look at a big set of timelines for every student, and it shows you what they're doing. So if they're just looking at the same page for a very long period of time, you can probably guess that they are on a different screen playing a game or, trying to get onto Facebook or whatever. Whereas it'll show if they're actually live editing or if they're, turning pages or what pages they're on. So that gives you some control as a teacher from like the teacher control point. You can sit there, right, and look at your screen and you can say, all right, Rob over there in the corner, you're doing a great job, you're working, and Eric over in this corner, I see you've been on the same page for 15 minutes. Are you having trouble with something? Is it not editing right? Or, are you doing something else? So sometimes that's the problem too, is that people are stuck on their editing, and you can have, as someone suggested, someone else come along and help. Do you have any other comments about collaboration, cooperation, working together in the classroom? Eric.
I was just going to mention a really negative experience I had with it was I started in a different master's program, and we had to write a paper as a collaborative group, and I had a non-traditional woman who was a little bit older, and then I had a person who was from the military and had a very direct communication style, and them together just created a lot of friction. And and I think what it was is the lack of being able to see each other face to face and to be together and have it be completely virtual. And even less than that, we weren't doing video sessions. We were just doing, okay, you do this paragraph, you do this paragraph, you do this paragraph. And it just was a really bad experience. And what it came down to is everyone did their piece, and I ended up having to go through and spend a lot of extra time improving the quality just because we just could not get on the same page as a group. And it was a very frustrating time. And I can honestly say that I don't look forward to collaborative projects because of it, especially when it's really important to me, like this master's program is, or something like this.
I've had, in my experience through my master's, I did my master's entirely online through Penn State. In a very similar program to this. It was instructional system and design, educational technology. And I always told my classmates, I don't pay to get something besides an A. So I was very driven to create products that met my standards, as many of you are. I will say to all of you that are here, and those of you who aren't here, I'm sorry you're not hearing this. This class is doing a fantastic job. I've had a class of social loafers before, and I would not have told them that. But as a whole, the products you guys are turning out are really fantastic. The thought you're putting into your blog posts are really nice. I'm really excited to see what you guys do every week, and that is not always the case. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I didn't put collaborative things in this. I know some people's work styles do not match very well, and one of the reasons I do like these video sessions, as time consuming as they are, and as I'm sure awkward as they are for some of you to make your life work around attending a couple of them, I think that seeing your people face to face that you're going through this whole program with helps you build that sense of community and trust, and it allows you to hopefully in some time in the future when you do have to collaborate to have that ability to work together then a little bit more easily formed than if you didn't have this. So I appreciate you attending tonight, and I appreciate you working with me on these sessions, because I know this is not sometimes what people have joined the program for, is to have to block out an hour of time for in their evening. But we have kept it to pretty close to 40 minutes every time or less. And so with that, if anyone has anything else to add, we can talk about it. Otherwise, if you need to speak with me, you can kind of hang on and wait for everyone else to leave. And otherwise, I will see you in another week. We only have one more left that you're required to go to. So that's a good thought. Well, you don't have to come to it unless this is your first one, but there's only one more left of the sessions that we have planned. So, well, everybody, and have a good night and enjoy your evening then.